Hey there, welcome back to the Fireside Chat. Got my fire going here. I don't know how well you'll be able to hear it. Got my microphone plugged in. Try to help give you some better audio. But hopefully you can hear a little bit of crackle in the background. I made sure to turn off the AC before I got started, so I hope this shouldn't be interrupting me anymore. Just got to remember to turn it back on. But we're gonna try out a new format here. Um, I don't, I like. I think the first two episodes were more political focused. I enjoy consuming political stuff, but I don't think I really cared for discussing it. At least not to the point of going in depth like the subject matter really requires. So we're gonna try to change it up here, and I don't. If you want some top notch political talk, there's channels that would do it way better. So, um, just from a standpoint of how I can provide the best value here, if you're choosing to spend your time with me, I think how we have it now is going to be a better solution. And so our little setup here is just sharing stories, personal stories or other stories from other people that, first of all, are true and where you can really pull a lesson out of, preferably more than just one. But, I think Warren Buffett said something close to this. I tried to put my own little spin on it. But if if you can learn from your own mistakes in life, you can survive in life. But if you can learn from somebody else's mistakes, you'll thrive. So that's some value I'm trying to provide for you here. And the first one is breaking down on the side of the road. So back when I lived in El Paso, I lived there for a little close to 5 years, but I had this old 1996 white Chevy 2500 crew cab, or I think it was extended cab or whatever their terminology for it was. It was a cab and a half. But that thing that thing was something special, man. I think driving that thing home, the reason I got that is because I totaled the truck before it. Well, that's a whole other story that we can probably pick up on next week or some other time. But goodness, that thing was a piece of work. And so, shortly after I had moved out of the barracks, it got promoted to the point where I could have my own place. I moved out of the barracks and was living in my own little house with my own crappy little truck, and life was doing pretty good. At that point, I was out of debt. The funny enough, the situation that put me into that truck, totally in my truck before that, is what got me out of debt. Moving into the home before I had my full emergency fund kind of shot me in the foot there. But anyway, I don't know what's important. This was about a couple weeks after my niece was born, and I hadn't gotten to see her. My brother, his family lived in Augusta at the time, Augusta, Georgia, and I finally got some leave and was trying to go see her for the first time, So I just had gotten this dog. I moved out on my own, got my dog Shania. I'm sure she's poked her head in the video before. And so that was like within 2 weeks of this happening. But anyway, I throw Shania in this crappy old truck that I had just gotten the AC working the week before. uh, Before that, it didn't work, but I needed to make sure Shania had some AC. I didn't care, but I needed to make sure she had some. So I load her up. I load up as much tools as I could think I would need. Um, I tried to think of everything. I brought a full, like 300-piece mechanics tool set, some impact sockets, impact wrench, like 4 different tool batteries. I thought I was good to go. And we hop in the truck and set sail. And within about after the first hour or so, I had started to get some suspicions. And, I never driven this far in that thing. From El Paso to Georgia was, it may have been close to around 22 hours, if I remember correctly. But, well over 1,000 miles. I think it may have been about 1,400 or something. Anyway, I don't know if it had driven that far in the past 10 years. So this was a Hail Mary to begin with. And after the first hour or so, I started hearing, it starts shaking a little bit. It seemed like it was coming from underneath the drive shaft, or around the drive shaft, underneath the cab. And I was just like, oh boy, here we go. But it kept going. So I was just riding it out. And making another hour, doing good. It still, every now and then, it would still shake a little bit. But I was just like, screw it, man. We're going to press through it. And I stopped to get some gas. I'm texting my mom like, hey, we're making all right progress. This thing's kind of shaky. I don't know how it's going to go, but we're still going right now. And I texted her that, and immediately she called me, and she's like, Jeremy, are you okay? Are you going to make it? I was like, oh, yeah, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. And so we get back on the road after we get some food from, I think it was a Wendy's or something at the gas station. We get back on the road, and about an hour later, a total of 3 hours into this trip, it starts shaking real bad. And then I immediately lose power. And I just skirt off to the side of the road and get to a decent spot where I'm like half on the road, half on the shoulder and half in the dirt. This is in the middle of nowhere, Texas. BFT. And it was also about 10 o'clock at night. I think when it happened, it was probably closer to 9. So, and this was in June, so it wasn't completely dark yet. In the summers in Texas, the sun can stay up for a good little bit until around 9 or something. But freaking, and somewhere in Texas at 9 o'clock, it's still like 95 degrees outside. So it was not a good spot to be in. And so I pull over on the side of the road, and I'm like, okay, well, I lost power. Let me open the hood. Let me see what's underneath there. I checked the battery terminals. Everything looks fine there. But just to be safe, I undid everything and scrubbed them with a freaking a wire brush I had. Make sure they were clean. That is something I had an issue with before. So I thought, well, maybe I just need to clean them and it'll be fine. And I can get back on the road. It didn't work. So I'm starting to check everything. I look underneath because I thought it was coming from the drive shaft or whatever shaking was. Everything looked fine. I shook the drive shaft. It didn't wobble any more than it ever did. It was still an old truck, But I am just at a loss for words at this point. And I didn't have a jump box or anything, but I did have some of my tool batteries. And in the past, before that, I had jumped my truck off a tool battery before. You gotta be real careful though. But you say this is not very representative of it. Let's say this is positive, this is negative. I just had to jam some things in there like this, and then hook the probes on. You got to be careful, or else you're gonna blow something up. But anyway, so I tried that with 4 of my batteries. Didn't work. It almost got close on one, so I was like, okay, this is some kind of electrical power issue. And at that point, 2 hours had gone by. It is now 11 o'clock at night in the middle of the desert on Highway 10. The closest town to me was 10 miles away, this little town called Monahans. There were some other, I don't remember the names right on either side of me on the highway, but I looked up. I pulled up Uber. I pulled up, I don't know, some other ride-sharing app I can't think of right now. Nothing was available. I tried searching for local taxi services. Nothing. The closest airport to me was in El Paso, which was about 300 miles away. And I am just thinking, what am I going to do? And, at that point, I'm texting my mom and my brother being like, hey, I don't know when I'm going to get there. But we'll figure it out. This is happening. And then after a while, I eventually just broke down and called the Monahans Police Department and was saying, hey, I'm on the side of I-10 heading east. Could I get some help out here? And I wasn't in the city limits, so it was like, well, we'll have to call the sheriff's department, but we'll let you know when someone is on their way to you. And a little while later, or about 10 minutes or so, I get another call. It's like, all right, they're on their way. And about another 20 minutes, this is about 11:30, the sheriff finally gets there, and as far as that went, I was being goofy as far as how I was acting around him. As soon as he pulled up, I immediately got out of the vehicle, out of my truck, and at first I just thought, holy crap, what am I doing? He doesn't know what he's rolling up on. Let me get back in my truck. So I got back and sat there. The driver's side window didn't roll down, so I had to crack it. Like, hey, sir, my dog's back here panting. Can we get a ride somewhere? And he let us hop in the back of his police car. It was the first time being in the back of a police car for me, so I was checking it out. And I'm sure Shania, she's like, what are you putting me through, man? I just met you 2 weeks ago, and we're in the back of a cop car. What is going on? Anyway, I know the dogs don't really think, they probably don't think about that crap, but that's how I always think of it. So the sheriff takes us to the closest hotel that takes dogs. It was the La Quinta Inn in Monahans. And we get there, we settle in for the night. Shania pees on the floor. We're having a great time. And so the next morning, had a game plan. There weren't any rental car places anywhere close. But I found a U-Haul close by. It was, I think, a mile and a half away from the hotel. So I got up the next morning. I hitchhiked over to this hotel, or excuse me, the U-Haul. And I was like, hey, man, do y'all have any vehicles I could rent by chance? And they were like, no, we're all out. So at that, they were like the only U-Haul place within 50 miles of me. And like I said, there were no other rental places. There wasn't an Enterprise, an Avis, or any of those other things available. But I could see that there was one that was there that used to be in the local municipal airport, the Monahans Municipal Airport. There used to be one there. So I called the airport and I was like, "Hey, do y'all happen to have any rental cars? I know I see y'all used to have some rental companies there." He was like, "Nah, man, we don't. But I got some courtesy vehicles if you want to come grab one. You know, I got an old Crown Vic and a Tahoe out here. You just bring them back with the keys and some gas." And I was like, "Oh, well, how much does it cost?" And he's like, "It don't cost you nothing, man. Just come grab one." I was in disbelief. I was just like, "What?" I was like, "All right, man, I'll be right there. Do I need to talk to anybody when I get there?" And he's like, "Nah, the keys are behind the desk next to the radio. Just come grab it." And I was like, "Okay." Um, so that was about 3 miles away from me. So I do a mix of running and walking over there. About 30 minutes to an hour later, I get there and there's not a soul in this building, but there for sure there's a Crown Vic and a Tahoe out back. And I found the keys next to the radio. I didn't see anybody else at this airport. So I grabbed the keys to the Crown Vic. The Tahoe was newer, and I was like, "Nah, if they're gonna be this nice, I'm not gonna take their newer vehicle." So I grabbed this old Crown Vic police car, or used to be a police car, that had the city of Monahans Airport plastered on the side of both sides of it. So I take that and I go to the auto parts store, Advanced Auto, and I get some new spark plugs, some new spark plugs wires, a new distributor, and a new ignition coil. You know, I tried to grab everything that I could think of that would be the issue. And I go back to where the truck is. Shania is hanging out at the hotel, and I'm wrenching on this thing for about 4 hours in the hot Texas sun on the side of the road. I think 2 other cops pulled over and asked if I needed help or anything, and each one of them was like, "Just so you know, after 72 hours, we got to remove it." I was like, "All right, sir, thank you, I'm good." And I put on new spark plugs. No results. I put on new spark plug wires. No results. I put on a new distributor. It's cranking a little more now, so I'm like, okay, surely this ignition coil is going to get me going. No. And it was at that point where I was just like, okay, I don't know what else there is to do. The only thing I could think of else to do is that there is some wiring that is frayed or somewhere that I can't see, or there's some other electrical issue that I am not capable of finding in this environment with the tools that I have. It's like, I brought a crap ton of tools, but I didn't bring every tool to tear into this thing. And I had been out there for 4 hours. At that point, it was like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I needed to get back on the road, man, because we had reservations at places, tickets to stuff, and I had to get the show back on the road. But I'm just all running around in Monahans with some vehicle I don't own. Oh, dude, thank the Lord that dude let me borrow it. I don't know what I would have done without it. Because with it, after none of that crap worked, I drove the closest dealership within 50 miles was the Monahans Dodge dealership. So I go to Dodge, and I found the cheapest truck they have. It's a 2016 Ram 1500 crew cab. that is marked up about $10,000 over its value. And yeah, and that seemed like it was my only option, man. You know, like what was I gonna do? At that point, I was just about out of cash. I had $500 that I used. That was not in my trip budget, but it was put to the side for savings. I'd run out of my trip budget trying to fix that damn white truck. But I used the $500 I had as a down payment. Like the only other option was to find some other beater. And Lord knows what kind of mess that would have been. Buying it on the spot without having it looked at or anything. And still having to drive another 900 miles. So I figured the best worst thing I could do was to get that truck that I knew would work. So that's what I did. You know, I grabbed Shania from the hotel. I checked out of the hotel, and we're just hanging out at the Dodge dealership with the car I don't own. And I'm talking to these people, and they just got it a couple of days before I showed up there, so it was still dirty. So they were like, "All right, we need some time to clean it." And I was like, "All right, that's fine." So they're cleaning up this truck, and we're sitting there working out the details of it all. And first of all, they wanted like 19% interest. And I was like, "What are y'all talking about?" So they lowered it down to 17. So it wasn't so much better, right? And they knocked off a couple $1,000, I think two. One was for the truck. They went and got the old truck and towed it off somewhere, and they gave me $1,000 for it, and another $1,000 for a military discount. So, you gotta count some wins when you get them. But so we get this pretty considerately overvalued truck. Finally get on the road, and we finally get back on the road, and I think as soon as I pulled out of the dealership, something flew off of it. It was like a lens cover to the lights on the side mirrors. So that immediately flew off, and I was just like, what was that? But anyway, it was just a lens cover. It's like, whatever. Let's keep going. And then I get through Texas, I went through Tennessee that time. Got to Memphis. As soon as I rolled into Memphis, I got a flat tire. And goodness, thank the Lord it happened the way it did. I caught it immediately with the tire pressure monitoring system. I just saw it steadily drop. And I was like, okay. And there happened to be a gas station immediately in front of me on the exit. And I was in the right lane to get off. So I immediately got off and got to the gas station. Luckily, I had a fix-a-flat kit. Fixed it. Within 30 minutes, we were back on the road. Thank the Lord it wasn't a complete blowout. That would have been... I probably wouldn't have been able to save the tire at that point, or the rim, if it had gotten really messed up. But luckily that was the last hiccup. Oh, and we finally got to Georgia with a crazy story. Oh, man. When I was walking through Monahans, it was still the desert area, and I swear I thought I was walking through the desert portion of Grand Theft Auto. It was that kind of vibe. There were just it's oil drilling area, so there's oil rigs out in the distance with the fire on the top. Pretty picturesque. I took some pictures of some that were old and that weren't in use anymore, that were just laced throughout the town. But I'll try to find some of those pictures and post them after this goes live, um, so you can kind of get the vibe I'm talking about. But yeah, man, it was wild. But I need to rebuild the fire here, and then we'll talk about some of the lessons we learned from that whole ordeal. All right, got the fire back going again. It's coming back to life there. Dang dog scratching on the door trying to get out. Anyway, so back to some of the lessons that I think were the main takeaways from that whole ordeal. First one is the importance of an emergency fund. Um, like I was talking about, after I had moved out of the barracks, I didn't have a 3-month emergency fund like I wanted to have built up yet. So I had to take out a loan and get, if you start renting a house, you have to have the first month's rent, another month's worth as the security deposit, and then all the stuff you need just to be able to function in a home. So I got a loan for that, and that kind of pulled me back into the whole, away from being debt free like I was, and that was really frustrating. So that happened just a couple weeks before this whole ordeal. So I was still trying to pay that off, and this happened, and then I have a $26,000 truck loan. So And if I had had a full emergency fund like I had wanted, it's hard to Monday morning quarterback things because in the moment, the whole ordeal can cloud your judgment. But I think I probably would have been able to take a breath and try a couple different more things before, or I could have afforded to take it to an auto body shop and they'd be like, they could tell me what the deal was and we could have fixed it that way, preventing me from being almost $30,000 in debt again. You know, it just gives you options. It really gives you options and can give you peace of mind knowing, all right, it's not the end of the world. It can give you a clear mind to think through problems instead of trying to filter out the holy crap, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I need to get going. You know, it kind of gives you a calm mind, clear mind where you can breathe and be like, okay, this is what I need to do. I don't need to let anything else get in the way. I need to focus explicitly on that. So I think that's the first lesson from that. The second one is just one thing I think I did right in that situation is just pushing through the difficulties that just kept coming. And since that happened last year, any time that I have an issue, I just try to think of that and be like, hey, if you can deal with that, man, you can figure this out. Being stranded in the middle of the desert with your dog and finding a way out of it. I think another way to put it is be relentless in your pursuit of your goals. Kind of gives the broad application of that lesson, instead of just looking at it as through the lens of difficulties. But if you let the difficulties that you encounter control your life and let them get you down, then you're not going to push through them. You're going to be paralyzed with whether it's fear, frustration, whatever emotion you may be feeling. You got to be able to push through it, or else you're not going to grow. You're not going to get through anything, and you're not going to be able to get back on the right track either. And finally, the last thing I could think of to pull from that situation is things will go wrong no matter what. No matter how much you prepare, something will go wrong. One thing, my favorite high school teacher, Randy Powers, if he's watching, I miss you. I'm sorry I suck at reaching out. But I miss you. I think about you a lot. But one thing he said all the time was life sucks and then you die. And at the time, I was like, ugh, that's pretty grim and gruesome. But it's the truth, man. It is the truth. And the secret to it is just embracing that fact. It takes the grimness away when you just embrace it. Be like, all right, that's just what life is. You're going to encounter issues. You're going to run into roadblocks. And you just have to keep going. And I think that speaks to the fact that we're called to suffer just as Jesus Christ did for us. And you can either fully own your role in that, or you can whine about it and be pessimistic. And trust me, I'm preaching as much to myself here as to anyone else. But yeah, life sucks and then you die, and you got to figure out a way to make something beautiful out of it, or else your life just sucks. So, uh, anyway, that's all I got for this. We're at about 35 minutes now, so that's pretty good. It's pretty good, I think. I don't want to go too long, or if you go too long, people will tune out. Um, but I hope you enjoyed this new little format that we're doing. I think it's a much better way to provide some value to whoever watches this video. Yeah, just know I appreciate you. One other idea I was thinking about doing was a once a month. I don't know if it'd be on this channel or one of my other ones. I've got 4 YouTube channels, man. But it would probably be on the Rely on Faith one. But I was thinking about having a monthly prayer request video. Let me know if that's something that you would find interesting. It would just be, hey, submit y'all's prayer requests for the month, and then we'll go through them all in a video and kind of use that as a way to amplify people's needs through prayer. But anyway, we'll get to our closing prayer, and then we'll get out of here. All right. So, Lord, thank you for another day on the earth with everyone that we love. Thank you for providing everything that we need, whether we realize it or not. And Lord, please help us learn from our mistakes, and more importantly, learn from other people's mistakes, so we don't have to go through that hardship ourselves, and that we can grow as a collective community. And Lord, please just let your will be done in all things, and show us how to play a role in fulfilling your will. And, in Jesus' name, amen. All right, y'all. Thank y'all for watching. If you need some financial coaching, the link will be in the description here. So go check that out. If you want some cool patriotic shirts, I'll leave that link in the description as well, or some woodworking stuff. It'll all be there. I appreciate you, and I'll see you next week. See ya.